Hello and welcome to Unit 3, Part 3. My name is Mr. Bell and we're going to solve some systems of equations by substitution. On this slide it says to solve each system of equations by substitution, remember to isolate a variable in one of the equations. And you may remember from last chapter, we actually solved systems by graphing and found where those points intersected. In this particular lesson, we're going to talk about how to solve by substitution. Now, to substitute, you've got to isolate one of your variables. That means you need a variable by itself. In this first example on the left, we already have one. It says y is equal to 5. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rewrite the second equation, except put a parentheses where there is a y, and in place of that y, I am going to substitute what y equals, and that is a 5. This allows me to solve for my x value. 2x, 3 times 5 is 15, equals 30. We would subtract 15 from both sides to get 2x equals 15, and divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 7.5. And the way you would write your answer in this case is a point. So the x value is 7.5, and the y value that they gave us in the original question is 5. We just solved this system using substitution. Take a look at the second example. It says y equals 2x minus 4 and negative 3x plus 5y equals negative 20. And again, we don't really have to do anything special to the first part because we already have one of the letters isolated. This says y equals 2x minus 4. So I'm going to take what y equals, this 2x minus 4, and I am going to substitute it in place of the y in the second equation. So to rewrite the second equation, I'm going to do negative 3x plus 5 times open parentheses equals negative 20. And remember, in place of y, I'm substituting the 2x minus 4. Now let's simplify this question and see if we can solve for x. We're going to distribute here. Bring down the negative 3x. 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20 equals negative 20. We're going to combine some like terms here. Negative 3x plus 10x is the same thing as 7x minus 20 equals minus 20. We'll go ahead and add this 20 to both sides, giving me 7x is equal to negative 20 plus 20 is 0. And we'll divide both sides by 7 just to finish this out to get an x value of 0. Now I've got half of my answer. What I need to do now is take the x value that I found, substitute it in for x so that I'm able to solve for what my y value is. Okay, we'll do it over here in yellow, in green. So y is equal to 2 times x minus 4. That was from our original question. But since we solved for x already, instead of writing x again, I'm going to plug x in. I'm going to plug 0 in for x. 2 times 0 is 0. I'm left with y equals negative 4, and I'll write my final answer like this, 0, negative 4. Looking at this system, you may notice that neither of the two equations have a letter by itself on one side. The top one is close because there's no coefficient of the x, but there's still two things on the left side. So what we need to do is use what we know about manipulating equations in algebra to get the x by itself on the left side. So I'm going to rewrite it over here, x plus 3y equals 1. But I need the x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 3y from both sides. That way it cancels from the left. Now I have x equals negative 3y plus 1. So now that I have isolated my variable, I know what x equals. X equals negative 3y plus 1. You can now substitute that in place of x in that second equation. So we'll do it over here to the right. Negative 3 times x minus 3y equals negative 15. But in place of where the x was, I'm going to put what x equals, which is negative 3y plus 1. And now we're going to simplify this and solve it for y. We're going to distribute on the left. Negative 3 times negative 3y is 9y. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Bring down the minus 3y equals negative 15. We're going to combine some like terms that are both on the left side of the equation. 9y minus 3y is 6y. Bring down the minus 3 equals negative 15. I'm going to add 3 to both sides to continue working my way to solve for y. Negative 15 plus 3 is negative 12. Divide both sides by 6 as my final step here. We have a y value of negative 2. Don't forget, that's only half of your answer. Take that y value. You can plug it into either one of the original equations, or you can plug it into the one that we rearranged. It's the same equation, we just rearranged it a little bit. I'm going to plug it into the one that I rearranged. So I'm going to come over here, plug it in for y so that I can solve for my x. X is equal to negative 3 times y plus 1. And then my y value that I solved for was negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is 6 plus 1. X equals 7. Now we can write our final answer as 7 comma negative 2. This last example is probably the hardest one of the lesson. If you notice again, we have two systems of equations. We need to solve it by substitution, but none of the letters are isolated. So we need to just pick a letter and isolate it. You have lots of options here. If I can help it, I'm going to pick one that won't result in a fraction, and that just comes with practice. I'm going to try to isolate the x in the first equation at the top. So I'm going to rewrite it over here to the left. Negative 2x plus 6y equals 6. Now I'm going to try to solve this whole left side and get x by itself. So I'm going to move everything else. I'm going to subtract the 6y from both sides, leaving me with negative 2x equals negative 6y plus 6. These are not like terms, so I can't combine them. I'm just going to put the negative 6y first and the plus 6 next. Continuing to solve, we'll divide everything by negative 2. To get a value for x is equal to negative 6 over negative 2 is 3y. 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. So I just used my rules of algebra to isolate the x. That's good. Now I can take that x value, 3y minus 3, substitute it in place of x in the second equation like I've been doing on the previous examples. This would be negative 7 times x plus 8y equals negative 5. But in place of the x, I'm going to plug in 3y minus 3. Let's solve it. Distribute. Negative 7 times 3 is negative 21y. Negative 7 times negative 3 is a positive 21. Bring down the plus 8y equals negative 5. We're going to combine some like terms. Negative 21y plus 8y is negative 13y. I'm going to bring down the plus 21 and bring down the negative 5. Continuing to solve, we'll subtract 21 from both sides, leaving me with negative 13y equals a negative 26. And the last step, we'll divide both sides by negative 13, giving me a y value of a positive 2. And remember, this is half of your answer. The y value is 2. We've still got to go back and find the x value. So take that y of 2, plug it into either one of your original equations or the one that you rearranged for y. In this case, x is equal to 3 times y minus 3. But in place of the y, I'm going to put what y equals, which is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. And there is the x value for my solution to the system of equations. All right, thank you for watching. Hope this helps.